Namaste. Welcome to Global Perspectives, produced by Today's Youth Asia. Global Perspectives television show brings to you documentaries, films, and people from around the world that provide insights and understandings on global affairs. I'm Samiksha, and in today's episode, we're featuring Mr. Dilip Mukerjea, a learning chef, brain dancer, and the managing director of Braindancing International and Buzan Center, Singapore Private Limited. Initially trained as a marine engineer, Mr. Mukerjea is also a very accomplished writer, with Superbrain, Brainfinity, and Braindancing as his bestsellers. He focuses on society at diverse levels, imparting knowledge to educational institutions and business corporations. Firstly, could you define the term braindancing to us?
The term braindancing? Define. You asked me to define. I tend not to define, because when you define, it confines. I rather be free and liberated, and that's what braindancing is. The freedom, the liberation, the sensation of creativity. If you watch a brain inside, and you watch the brain cells, which are called neurons, and when they move, when you think, when you ideate, when you crack a joke, when you study, your brain cells are dancing. They're moving, and they're illuminated, and they're remarkable. And no non-human technology can match that. I'm in love with how the brain loves dancing. And I delve into that secret in order to help you excel. So it's the sensation of creativity.
Though you're a marine engineer, what made you take up braindancing as your present career?
Without knowing the term at the time, I was braindancing. I love marine engineering. It was incredibly challenging and versatile. It has a panoramic array of experiences on offer, and I sampled one hell of a lot. But at a certain point, I asked my bosses whether they agreed if I was a genius, and they said yes. And then I said, am I stupid too? And they said, what happened? Well, my curiosity was that the same brain that can be incredibly smart can also be absolutely stupid. So I wanted to find out about this mass of protoplasm in my head, what it can do, and how it can be better, and how it can move on to helping others do the same. So I, out of curiosity, was impelled into finding out about the brain. Nobody could tell me how to use my brain. People just expected that I must use my brain, but not how. There isn't a textbook on that. None of you students have textbooks showing you how to learn, how to study, how to excel. It's just an expectation. So I'm in the field of how.
What difficulties did you face during your career?
Just the act of being born was difficult, I think. Every woman has tough 9 months. I think my mother must have suffered incredibly, so that must have been challenging. Then my difficulties were how to grapple with learning, which I didn't know about, how to take the challenges of syllabuses, how to go through school and excel, how to post-school be brilliant in a world that is voraciously competitive. And they are always challenging. Every day I wake up with the world's highest IQ. My IQ is ignorance quotient. So every day I wake up with I don't know, what can I know? And it's a good difficulty, it's a good challenge. So I welcome that sort, because without that difficulty, without the struggle, you can't get smarter.
We see that books are most of the time pet theories or fancy of the authors. Although in some cases, they're also distilled experience of the author. What do you have to say on that, and how can we utilize the books to be creative?
You're right. In general, books are written to persuade, inform, or to entertain. I don't have a private agenda other than a publicly declared one to move the planet, as I said, from guns and bullets to brains and wits. We have to go forward in order to get away from the entropy that is dominating us. My books are distilled as well as works in progress, experiences that are live, alive, enlivening, and always evolving. I'm utterly convinced and totally confident that the techniques in my books and the strategies and approaches can help you, your country, anybody on the planet go from good to brilliant. breakdown to breakthrough.
Your books, Superbrain, Brainfinity, and Braindancing, have been acclaimed bestsellers. So could you tell us something about that?
A best-selling book has a certain amount of value, but you can have a lousy book that's a bestseller, and a terrific book that's not a bestseller. My interest is not particularly that the book sells well, it's that the contents are learnt well, and that they are propagated, whether through books or through live learnings or through discussions. These techniques are incredibly powerful but easy to learn, and they're not being taught in your learning systems. See, when your grandfather and your grandmother were working, the pace of life took them up like this. Today the pace of life demands we go like this. There's a big gap. My books aim to fill that gap and go beyond it. So they are eternal. They are not some love story or fiction or anything like that. That's a different type of book, and I will write those at another time. Right now I'm interested in writing books that show you how to go from smart to brilliant. The issue is not how smart you are. You're all smart. The issue is how are you smart. So I'm showing you how to be smart when you need to be smart eternally. Take whatever you have, process it at the speed of light, and move ahead. If we don't get ahead, we're going to stay dead. We must move ahead with winning outcomes.
How do you think positive and creative thinking can contribute to an individual's success?
Alright, do you believe positive thinking is a good thing?
Yes.
You should always challenge these dogmas. Positive thinking can be good and it can be bad. I know of a little boy called Charlie who was a bit hesitant, and he told his mother, "Hey Mom, I don't think I can pass my maths exams tomorrow." And she says, "Charlie, I sent you to positive thinking camp. Come on, think positive." He says, "Okay, I'm sure I can't pass my maths exams tomorrow." So he's positively negative. You understand? Positive thinking is not my aim. My aim is self-efficacy. So that no matter what, positive, negative, hope, hopelessness, struggle, challenge, anything that comes in front of you, you have the competence and the confidence to face it, run through walls, and march on. Right? So positive thinking has value. Negative thinking can have value because it can show you the other side. Now your other part was creative thinking. That is my passion. Right? If you're very comfortable, there's no need to be creative. So people who are incredibly comfortable all the time, everything is provided for them. They don't need to be creative, even though they have the innate capability to be creative. They are not exhibiting creativity. There's a certain amount of discomfort, perturbation required in order to be creative. So when you have a shortage, a lack, a pain, you need to address it, you need to cure it, you need to be creative. The choice today is creativity or catastrophe, innovation or evaporation. We have to be careful. Every school system needs creativity. No school system has creativity as a subject. No school system encourages creativity in the classroom. They just give lip service to syllabuses, mugging, sweating, slogging. That is the death knell of childhood, and the future is going to be severely truncated, compromised, and sabotaged. Creativity is vital.
Could you give us some points on being a good speaker?
This is one of the greatest fears in the world, more than snakes and heights and deep waters and things like that. How to speak in front of an audience. The first thing that I would subscribe to is never try to impress. Express. Do what you people are doing. When you stumble, you make a mistake, oops, sorry, and you move on. Don't get trapped in some straitjacket, something artificial, and that you have to perform like somebody else. You can never perform like somebody else. You can only perform like you. And only you can get better at being you. Stay you. First, second, and last rule is stay you. Never seek to impress, express. Build your vocabulary. Build your general knowledge. Work on your sense of humor. Stay human and humane. When you don't know, say I don't know. Tell the truth. Get to know more, but do not be filled with knowledge, or you will suffer knowledge rot. Be in a state of knowing, ing, present continuous, so you're continually knowing. Be a certified learning fanatic, so that you're having fun with all your learning. If you're not having fun, you're burning, you're not learning. To be a speaker means that you must honor your audience. You must never fear your audience. If you show your fears, you are denying them the pleasure, the right of listening to you. They must be engaged, not encaged. Too many speakers have encaged their audiences. Too many classrooms are encaged by teachers. Teaching is the noblest of professions. I honor teachers. But some teachers and some teachings, too many in fact, rob you of being engaged, rob the speaker of speaking. It is just a private mission of making some sounds, and it's not reaching ears and brains and hearts and souls.
You seem to have put a lot of emphasis on developing self-efficacy skills as a prelude to academic achievement. Can you give us some practical illustrations as to how students can empower themselves with such skills?
I achieved a lot academically, but out of fear. Because I was terrified of failing and terrified of the syllabus. And then you coupled what you said with self-efficacy, which is where I'm leading people towards. The first thing towards self-efficacy, I would say, is never be afraid of being afraid. Face your fears. Massage your fears. Don't be embarrassed about saying I'm scared, or I don't know, or if you've stumbled and fallen. If you're going to fall, fall on your back. If you can look up, you can get up. But never be afraid to fall. Fall in love with life. Fall in love with learning. What's the meaning of life? Nothing. Life has no meaning. You give it meaning. To be self-efficacy means to give meaning to life, to live life fully, to run through walls with the passion that is burning in your soul, to not just mug your way, copy and paste and cut and paste all the trash and the cliches that are circulating and proliferating all over. Be you. The real miracle is you. The world is run by young souls, by young spirits like you. The future belongs to you. Be you. I want more of you. That's the salvation of our planet. My generation has stolen your future. The soil, the air, the water, space has been contaminated and polluted. We need to clean up. Express your spirits. Go forth. I will applaud all the way.
How can we use our brains so that we can move from guns and bullets to brains and wits?
Very relevant question. We have this massive protoplasm, as I said earlier, which we barely use to our greatest benefit. The first is, let me give you an insight. This is one of my ex-students. The human brain. A baby's head is encasing this. Every baby looks perhaps a bit like E.T., adorable, cute, cuddly. And this is phenomenal. This is the organ of genius. And it's moving, 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 responding, learning, seeking, searching. And these skills are de-geniused once the baby goes to school, because it's not encouraged to ask questions. It's unilaterally dictated to and said, do what I say. Sit up, pay attention, but don't ask questions. So Neil Postman, an educator, said that children enter school as question marks and leave as periods. You've never got to stop asking questions. If you take a question mark and turn it upside down, it becomes a hook. You see what happens then, if you don't do all of this, you become a grown-up executive with a brain like this. And then companies have a collection of brains like this. And then the boss says, let's juggle these around and give me genius. And they can't, because these brains are stressed and distressed. And therefore, your question is apt. So my idea is that, say your brain is this big, boom, it gets like that. And very quickly. So, is this propaganda? What do I mean by this? Would it not help you if you could read a book really fast? I read 10 books a week minimum, 500 books a year. I wish I could read 100 books a week, 50,000 books a year, whatever. However, it's possible. You can do that too. And with no pain. Wouldn't it help you if you had several books worth of information collapsed onto one sheet of paper? It will help you, right? No turning the page and forgetting. There's no learning without memory. If you forget, you fail your exams. If you forget, you can't execute a decision, and you're going to be accused of inefficiency, and you're going to create blunders. There's no learning without memory. I repeat, learning systems do not contain memory in your schools and your colleges. No memory systems exist for you to be educated with. It's not part of your textbooks. Not one textbook in this country or any country have I seen with adequate mnemonics in there. This is one of my passions. Reading, memory, collapsing masses of information for businesses, for corporations, for schools, for colleges, for children so that they can have a childhood and that they can learn at the speed of light. Now, what's the purpose of this? What's the benefit of it? The benefit is when you have masses of information meaningfully collapsed, distilled onto one sheet of paper at a time, what happens is your review time, you need review. 6 to 7 reviews to transfer information from short-term to long-term memory. You need that. That is not mugging. That is intelligent reviewing. But when you review off one sheet of paper compared to stacks of paper, it's painless and it's highly efficient. So why should you review? Now you're listening to me. If we didn't review all of this, your short-term memory would sabotage it. But the value of reviewing and intelligent reviewing is that your brain then needs proteins manufactured to create long-term memories. It's a chemical, biochemical process, a neurochemical process, which is not taught in the classrooms. There's no drugs except the drugs in the brain. Your body is a drug factory. You don't need outside drugs. You need fun. You need smarts. You need interaction. You need engagement. You see, what's happening then is that people try, they fail, they complain. Then they try, they fail, they complain. They try, they fail, they complain. My proposition is you try, you fail, you learn, you win. You try, you fail, you learn, you win. No complaining. If you don't do so well, you learn. You learn from where you failed. And you didn't fail. You had an experience. So cut out the negatives, right? So how do you get smarter? Learn the strategies of visual mapping. We are in a visual culture. You are visual kids, right? Get visual in a deliberately meaningful way where your visuals, your symbols and your images, etc. can be collapsed in a tiny little space with massive meaning. That means high intensity, massive extensivity. If business people knew how to do this, businesses would be thriving and giving you a promising future for which you would not have to struggle right now. If they knew how to read fast in any format, books, papers, magazines, the screen, whatever, and if they knew how to hold that in memory and combine it with their archived knowledge and their wisdom and get creative with new ideas on the run at light speed in unreal time, they would be vastly more useful in society than shooting their mouths off about policies that are irrelevant. Okay? Synopsis, big subject. Can you kids learn this quick? Very quick. Do you need it? Indispensable. You do need it. Any ape can reach for a peanut. Only we can reach for the stars. Please reach for the stars.
How can we, the younger generation, inspire ourselves to reach up to your position?
My position is your position. I'm in a lower position than you. I look up to your generation. Please do not think that I'm above you. I am not. I'm just impassioned with wanting to open chambers of consciousness within you so that you excel. Look, many people approach something with aspiration, high hope, right? Then they have desperation. After that it's perspiration. And only at the end do they hope for inspiration. Imagine an institution, imagine a family, imagine a school, a society, a government, a country with inspired people inspiring people. The word inspiration comes from Latin. It means to breathe life into. When you inspire, you take in oxygen. When you expire, you breathe out oxygen. Every moment we are exchanging this. It's alternating. Inspiration, expiration, inspiration, expiration. But I know the meaning of what you are saying. You are asking for inspiration in the sense to inflame your soul, to be dazzling, to be brilliant. Today, very good is very boring. Very good is not good enough. You've got to be dazzling. You've got to be inspired. On a bad day, you've got to be inspired. And yesterday, I came across somebody declaring to me that some of his friends are going to work in a very boring office, and the only inspiring moments are after work. I said, wow, they're losing 8 to 10 hours of their lives every day in doing boring work, and they don't realize that everything connects to everything else. So if something is boring, everything becomes boring. If something is fascinating, everything becomes fascinating, right? So if I took a bowl of water here that is delicious, and you put 1 drop of cyanide over there, I'll never touch it. Everything connects to everything else. You understand? If you feel uninspired, go and look for somebody else who's worse off than you and lift them up. If you feel somebody's burning out, right, like a dying coal, be that flaming coal that comes next to them and inflame them. Bring them back to life. There are too many people busy dying, not busy living, right? This is a learning revolution that needs to be created. This is a learning economy. It's not a dead brain economy. You need to move ahead. You need to lead. Leadership is a crisis over here. There are too many misleaders. There's no such thing as a bad leader. Either you're a leader or you're not a leader, right? The future depends upon your leadership. So what am I looking for? Learning leadership, leading learnership. I want you people to have brain clubs across this nation. I want you people to be the leaders of those brain clubs. I want to help you propagate these brain clubs for your glory so that you go into the future with dazzling outcomes.
When we talk about education, for students, it mostly means memorizing without understanding. So how can classroom education be made more innovative and creative so that students become more active in learning?
Yeah, education. I'm always confused by the word in the way that it is being practiced. If you take, I played around with this word a bit for one of the books I'm writing. If you take the word education and juggle up the letters, it'll make cautioned. And if you juggle up the letters again, it'll make auctioned. It'll also make idea count. And it'll also make action due. All of these cases are the same letters, E-D-U-C-A-T-I-O-N, juggled around, and they give you that. So I will play with that and answer your question. And that's, you've got to be cautioned about being in danger of being auctioned. Because every idea counts in order for you to realize that action is due. If you take the words teachers and students, you will get the stranded nutcases if you play around with the letters. Teachers must learn from students, students must learn from teachers, teachers must be taught by students, students must be taught by teachers. There must be an intermingling and an interactivity between all parts. What's happening is that, to further answer your question, here's a model of the brain. And if you take this model like this, what happens is when a baby is born, as I showed you earlier, all of this is working. All of this is working. The baby is communicating with you, engaged with you, communicating and connecting with you. But what happens is that as the baby goes a little older and goes into a disciplinarian institution, the authority figure tells the baby a certain set of strictures, gives it stipulations, not stimulations. And the baby loses this part of the brain. That part is imagination, sense of color, imagery, wonderment, play, gone. And then it says, you pay attention to me and do your reading, writing, arithmetic according to the way I know best. And then this one is stressed. It says gone. And this part of the brain, the central part, is your emotional section, where you have your feelings, your falling in love, your remembrances, and your long-term memories. And this is getting additional pressure now because the top half is all gone now. And this one gives up and you come down here, right to the bottom, which is the reptilian brain. You're in shock. You have brain lock. And smart students are giving stupid, sensational answers to meaningless experiences. That is mugging. That is not education. The choice today is education or extinction. But what you have correctly described is only termed education, but is not education. So how do they do it in the classroom? Bring somebody like me in the sense that you need to have, first, the teacher entering the classroom respecting the student. The student must begin with, I don't know, and the teacher must begin with, I definitely don't know, and I better find out. So the teacher does research, but must engage the students in the research, so it's not only active, it's interactive, and perpetual and ongoing. And the classroom must be an academy of joy. The JQ, the joy quotient, must be incredibly high every time, so that when the bell rings for the next class, they don't want to leave their seats. They don't need glue to glue them to their seats. It's fascination, it's interest, right? It's passion for learning. If you go back to the ancient Greek and you take the word P-A-I-D-I-A, it's the concept of play. The Greeks knew that play was a vital element of life. But if you take the same letters, P-A-I-D-I-A, and interject an E there, P-A-I-D-E-I-A, It is the concept of education. So the Greeks knew that when you infused play into education, learning was incredibly powerful. I have an entire system, very easy to pick up, whereby your country needs this to infuse into every classroom at every level. Primary, kindergarten, secondary, college, corporate education, and for senior citizens, so that you can tap into their wisdom and their experiences. And what's happening is that there's a strata of society that's too young to die and too old to live, and they've given up. And they are out of tune with your generation. And your generation is losing touch with a vital aspect, vital strata of society that can be of value to you, because they hold memories, they hold experiences that you can recombine into fresh outcomes for you, right? So your classroom must be inquiry based. You must have learning safaris. You must have festivals of learning within your classroom. Every day should be a celebration, not just Founders Day or something like that. Most Founders Day are boring dead-end events, right? They're cul-de-sacs of intellectual degradation, right? But they must be joyous, they must be fun, they must be interactively vibrant. So that's what your classroom must be like. I hope I am in a position to one day give you a demonstration. The custodian of my intellect, my soul, my spirit is a lady called Nandita Hanuman over here. So if you need to track me down, you need to catch her first. Wow, she's fearsomely, deliciously delectable, and she's beautiful. So get to her first.
With this, we've come to the end of today's episode. We hope you found the program meaningful. We look forward to your feedbacks. Our email address is youthtya@gmail.com. We will be back next week at the same time. Till then, have a nice week. Namaste.